For half a century, Norwood Elementary has been a fixture for families in the northern end of Warwick. And it's where Jessica Moon has spent countless hours volunteering while her two daughters work their way through the school, half a mile from their home.
I was the vice president of the PTA, room parent every year for 8 years. I spent hundreds of hours a year.
All of that changed for Guy and Jessica Moon 2.5 months ago, when their younger daughter came home from her 4th grade class with something to tell her parents.
On March 31st, he grabbed our daughter.
And her friend.
Grabbed her where?
In her behind, but it went kind of underneath, so he touched more than just her behind.
The Moons say a boy with special needs also made sexually explicit comments to their daughter. And it wasn't the first time. Jessica recalled a conversation she had 2 years ago.
In 2nd grade, the 2nd grade teacher at the end of the day asked me if she could speak to me because the lunch aide had heard that particular student saying to my daughter, "Do you know what a penis is? Would you like to see my penis?" And then
in 2nd grade.
2nd grade, and sang a song about it to my daughter.
Jessica Moon says the boy and her daughter were in different classes last year without incident, but problems began again this past academic year. She says she heard about the latest incident from their daughter and immediately contacted the principal, John Gannon.
The only information he would be able to give me over the phone was that she was touched. He wouldn't be able to say where. He wouldn't be able to say by who. He wouldn't be able to say anything except for she was touched at recess. And I have a report of it.
State law protects the confidentiality of students and also requires the public school system to educate all students regardless of their special needs. And that means there were many answers we could not get from the school department about the Moon situation. We do know that after the March 31st incident, Principal Gannon drafted a detailed safety plan to keep the two students apart. After a meeting at the school the next day that included Lynn Dambrook, the director of elementary education for the district.
Ms. Dambrook had assured us there'll be severe consequences to this, and she went on about, there would be punishments, and we talked about the other children that were involved that have been touched months prior.
And they acknowledged, did they acknowledge?
Mr. Gannon acknowledged. Ms. Dambrook looked at him
and said, "Are there others?"
Her reaction was, "I don't know anything about that." And he said that was about a month ago or so. I can tell you about that. So in other words, when we're not in the room, he'll talk to her about that.
The Moons say even with the safety plan, there was another incident at a school assembly.
A week later, my daughter comes home mortified. She was sat 3 seats from this child, where he's supposed to have an aide with them, a one-on-one. Her teacher knew the situation, the other 4th grade teacher knew the situation, and John Gannon assured my daughter she'd be checked on multiple times a day to make sure she was comfortable.
That's when Guy Moon went into action, going to Kent County Family Court to take out a temporary restraining order against the boy.
Hello, Mr. Moon, Mr. Gannon.
Mr. Gannon, how are you?
And calling Principal Gannon.
Hi, Mr. Moon. Just walked out of the meeting. I'm in the car.
I appreciate your call.
Superintendent Philip Thornton.
Hi, Mr. Moon. It's Lynn Dambrook. How are you?
Not very happy.
And Lynn Dambrook.
With all what's going on, they have the audacity to sit him 3 seats away. Absolutely, completely, 100,000% unacceptable.
I agree. I did plan a meeting with the school team to come up with environmental modifications, and that was one of the things that never, was your daughter to be sitting near him. And I respect you being an advocate for her, and I don't want your daughter to feel uncomfortable.
Well, my daughter just came home, told me she doesn't want to go to school no more. This is my life. My daughter is my life. My oldest daughter is my life. They apologize. They tell me they have daughters, and that's pretty much all I can get out of them.
They'll speak to the teachers and make sure it doesn't happen again. But at that point, it was too late. She didn't want to go back to school anymore. She was scared to death to go back to school.
So now here comes the following week. Every day crying. Every morning crying. I don't want to go to school.
Hyperventilating.
I'm in my bed at night. Nightmares.
We are a public school system, and every student has a right to attend. We need to make it a safe environment. I agree. That's our responsibility. and we want to put some things in place and also to, support the other student too, so he doesn't do this again.
Yeah, well, it all seems to be supporting him, and my daughter's getting ruined.
There has been some consequences, but I just can't discuss them with you. But there has been some steps taken, and I know Dr. Thornton shared this with you too. We just can't discuss that with you.
It's not like he just pinched her. He grabbed her behind.
Which is an unacceptable behavior, right? And we are taking steps to change behavior, to work with the student.
This has been going on for years. What are you going to change? This has been second grade. He sang a song about his penis to her. What more needs to be done?
In a conversation with Thornton, Moon asked about punishment.
But as far as punishing, that goes back to, does the behavior a kid will do, is it related to anything of how he's made up, his makeup? And that's part of the law, too.
There needs to be a discipline. There has to be.
Yep. I'd say all those things are not as clear-cut as you would think. There are all kinds of laws and regulations on that.
She was asking us to homeschool her. She was asking us to change her to a new school. And the biggest thing for us was we didn't want her to miss too much time.
So the Moons, after 8 years invested in Norwood, asked for a transfer to Holloman Elementary, a mile away on the other side of Post Road. The department immediately granted the request. Jessica Moon said she had not talked about the situation beyond close family and friends, but decided to go public after her husband went back to court for a hearing on the restraining order a couple of weeks later.
Kind of felt bamboozled. I show up, the school department decides to send their special education attorney. The mother had her own private attorney, which I kind of figured. I didn't expect the school department to send an attorney on behalf of
The assailant.
the guy who did, the guy who touched my daughter. And they also sent a special needs teacher in support of this family. So as I'm trying to tell Judge DeSegnia, I had to move my child. This is the fourth child that he's touched. They're not doing nothing about it. I had to remove my child from the school. John Anderson, who's the attorney, says there's no other kids that this happened to.
There's no record of any other children being touched.
What'd you think when he said that?
I was sick.
It was the fact that they sent them. It was like a slap in the face. Here's our child, the victim, and they're helping the person who did this to her. And to me, as I said, all those hours I spent in the school, I don't expect my children to get special treatment, but I definitely don't expect somebody else's child to get special treatment when my child is the victim.
Guy Moon voluntarily withdrew his request for a permanent restraining order at the suggestion of the judge, who noted the Moon's daughter was now in another school. On May 1st, he received an email from Danbrook saying, quote, Mr. Gannon and the Warwick School Department have carefully investigated all of your complaints and have not found evidence that supported your claims that your daughter was inappropriately touched at Norwood School. Danbrook noted that the department granted the transfer request to Holloman, that Jessica Moon reported their daughter was happy, and that Guy Moon voluntarily withdrew his complaint at family court. Danbrook went on to say, "This is my final communication with you regarding this matter. I am more than happy to assist you in the future on other matters." Superintendent Thornton tells the Hummel Report that while he personally did not conduct the investigation, which includes a statement from the Moon's daughter and others at Norwood Elementary, he agrees with and supports Danbrook's findings, and that he could not give us any more details. The Moons say even if you take the special needs and sexual aspect of the incidents out of consideration, the behavior is clearly bullying.
My daughter is afraid to go to school. How much more bullying can it get? I mean, intimidation is one of the things that has to do with bullying. And she was absolutely intimidated. She was afraid what else might happen to her.
In Warwick, Jim Hummel for the Hummel Report.